I think medical care in Nigeria at that time wasn't very good, so I was diagnosed wrongly and treated, wrong glasses, wrong medication. I think I had one operation that I wasn't supposed to have. But one thing that I have had to deal with is self-acceptance and learning to love myself. As I became an adult, it became a lot more severe because I was trying to fit in with a group, and I think it was a bit more difficult because it's not black and white. People don't understand. It's either you see or you're not seeing. Hi everyone, this is Ramblings with Rahma and I'm Rahma. I think I want to start off by giving a brief intro to what I want to discuss, subsequently. So I'm visually impaired and it's a recent development. I lost my sight 10 months ago and it has come with its own battles and basically I've learned a lot, as I'm coming up and, learning to live life without my eyes and all of that. So I'm pretty much just trying to share whatever information it is I have, right, based off of my own personal, world views. One of the reasons that I'm still sitting here is because while I was dealing with the stress of all of this, I saw a lot of content like this that people like me, persons with disability have posted over the years, and I've been opportune to meet a lot of people going through the same journey, basically. So information that I have gathered from them is what has helped me through. So I guess that this is my own way of contributing to whoever might need this at some point. I'm going to start off by just telling everyone how this came about. I was born with it actually, but I never knew that I was born with it till I think 3 years ago. I thought that it was just a series of calamities, basically. So when I was 2, I think my parents started to notice I was going close to the TV and I needed to, look at my phone, look at things, up close and all of that. So I started going to the hospital for treatment. Over the years, I think medical care in Nigeria at that time wasn't very good. So I was diagnosed wrongly and treated, wrong glasses, wrong medication. I think I had one operation that I wasn't supposed to have. At the point where I was 6 years, I lost one of the eyes. I lost my right eye. And over the years, I've pretty much managed the gradual progression of the left eye. Back then, I was diagnosed with cataract and retinal detachment. Over time, I was told that I had macular degeneration, and I eventually landed at glaucoma and corneal disease. Growing up, after I did like a surgery when I was 6 and 7, tried to see if there was anything I could do to save my right eye, but unfortunately there wasn't anything I could do. So I was told to just manage, what was left of my left eye, because I almost lost that as well. I think how glaucoma works, because I didn't realize that it was glaucoma all along. So along the line, because of change in doctors and all of that, I eventually found that out along the line. The thing with glaucoma is it spreads, it takes over the first eye and then it takes over the second eye, and it's like a thief in the night. It doesn't announce itself. It just comes. So I did that for years. I managed, through school, and I was able to do that up until I finished my university program. But unfortunately, somewhere along the line, I think in 2024, I just got in my job and I started to notice. So every point I noticed there's something going on. Luckily for me, I have parents who are very proactive in this department. So the moment I complain, I'm going straight to the hospital. If it's something they can afford, I'm being flown out of the country to make sure that, everything is being managed. I did that for, I think, about 18 years, if I'm remembering correctly. But anyways, I did that, and in 2024, I just got in my job and I was trying to manage. And at this point, I couldn't still work on my own. I needed people to help me do some stuff, but at least I could, I used a magnifier for years, so I would use that to write and read and all of that. It wasn't easy, but at least it was durable. So I was fine with it. When I went to the hospital in 2024, I was told that my glaucoma had gotten to the last legs. I started having low eye pressure, and I don't think that right now there's any medication or surgery to do that. But I was rushed into the theater. I was, operated on, a silicone oil operation. So my pressure did come back up, and a little bit of my vision. But my dad was still not satisfied, because I know, it was bad enough that I couldn't move around my own house. And I knew that affected my parents a lot, not being able to do anything for myself. So my dad and my mom did some research, and with help from a lot of family members and all of that, I was able to travel out of the country. And I met a couple of doctors, and they did warn me to just let it be, it's on its last legs. But then I met this specific one that told me that even if it's on its last legs, there's, a couple of things that we can do to extend, the lifespan, basically. So I did those, and I did a corneal transplant on both eyes. I came back after about a month, and everything was still good. I could still see. It was very blurry, but I could still see. So I told, I had a lot of questions, and I did my own research, and I found out that, depending on the body and all of that, it takes time to acclimatize, basically. So typically 4 to 6 to 8 to 12 months, depending on the patient. So every time I complained, I was told to just be patient, And I guess that was what I was doing. So I did have good days, and I had bad days. I didn't realize that in the process of having good and bad days, my bad days were more frequent. I was very distracted at that point. Most of my friends from school were back in town. I think I was in a relationship at that point, so I wasn't paying much of, attention to whatever was going on, with my eye. Until at some point it just did not seem like anything was going to come out of it. And subsequently, since then, every time I've been to the hospital, I have been told to, just prepare myself for the worst. So right now, I'm just down to probably light and shadow perception, and that's on a good day. Other days, I can't really describe what I see. I just can't see anything, basically. More like lights and all of that. But one thing that I have had to deal with is self-acceptance and learning to love myself in spite of all of this. I typically was the type of person to obsess about whether or not I was odd, or I looked odd, or I seemed odd, or I was just, I have a slight head tilt when I'm walking. That's because I'm used to bending my neck because of the one eye thing. So I'm always conscious of stuff like that. I'm always obsessing over not looking stupid or not feeling stupid. Like, I always just felt different right from, when I was a kid. And over time, as a teenager, I think it was very, very, very much intensified. And I went to an all-girls school, and girls are very, very mean. But over time, I dealt with that. As I became an adult, it became a lot more severe, because I was trying to fit in with a group, and I think it was a bit more difficult because it's not black and white. People don't understand. It's either you see or you're not seeing. There's no middle line. That gray line is not there. There's no understanding for someone who was partially blind, because in their head, if I can do some things, then I'm good. So I had a lot of misunderstandings, and people, look at me and tell me that I'm pretending and all of that stuff. And so at some point, hearing things like this as a kid kind of, it ingrains itself into you. So I think till today, there are times where I'm doing something and I'm like so scared, like I've been able to manage to do something, like accomplish, making spaghetti or something, and I'm thinking to myself like, oh, now I'm so worried. I don't want anybody to not like look at me and start feeling like, oh, okay, so this babe can see and all of that. So I had all of those insecurities. I didn't know how to communicate with my teachers in school. I was that child that they didn't really used to take much time to look at, because I didn't seem smart. I mean, I knew I was, but I guess at the end of the day, someone just needed to take a second look at me to harness my potential. So by the time I got to senior secondary school, I was lucky enough to have that, and I did that. I don't know when I got tired of pretending, right? Along the line of, like, in the last 1 year, I guess I just felt like I was just mentally exhausted and physically exhausted with caring whether or not anybody saw me as a blind girl. I thought that it took away from, my intelligence, or it took away from my beauty. Like, it didn't matter how much I would dress up or do anything, something in me would still feel like, something is wrong somewhere, like I'm not complete. So in the last 10 months, I have a friend's voice in my head every time I feel like that, yelling at me like, Rahama, you are complete, you are complete. So when I think that way, I hear his voice a lot. I've had to just be more comfortable in my skin, so to speak. Not to say that I don't care, I have my days, but I try not to let it affect me as much as it would have in the past. So I think that that's something that I've learned to, just set aside, is stop worrying what anybody thinks, because I hated the fact that, someone would see me being handheld, and I would go out and they'll be asking, oh, is she okay, and stuff like that. Like, I didn't like to not look independent, because I knew that in my heart I was, and I am an independent woman, so I didn't like to look, not independent. But at some point I was forced to drop all of that, because at the end of the day, if I don't do that, then I'm going to be in one place for the rest of my life, and I can't afford to do that, So I guess what I'm trying to say is, in spite of whatever situation that, life throws you in, you have to just put up your big girl panties and, like, just, face the world and not care what they think. In a way, just try to make sure that you're protecting your peace of mind. Be your own mind's best friend, talk yourself up and all of that. There's lots of ways that you can just learn to be in your element and accept yourself. Because if I say self-love, I don't think that it's possible to love every part of yourself, but you need to accept the parts of you that you don't love as well. You need to be okay with them. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say is, whatever the case may be, whatever you're being thrown into, you just need to be okay. You need to, like, find a way to be okay with who you are.